No. Too late.
The city council regular meeting from February 2nd, 2026, 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sanchez. Present. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Barr.
Here.
Councilmember Calderon.
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here. And for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proclamation for introduction of new employees, move the community participation forum. Members of the public may address city council on matters not listed on the agenda. The city council may not discuss nor take action on any community participation item brought forward by a member of the community. Comments are requested to be limited to 3 minutes. Do you have any comments, Mr.
Yes, and just like the public, I have an objection to the hearing. To the purchase data item that you have documentation on it, and that's just. You know what I'm saying?
I have a hard time hearing you. Often can.
I believe Mr. Coughlin has provided us a comment, an objection. We have here dated February 2nd, and was brought to the city, his objection.
Yes. All I'm saying is bringing that to your attention. For the, I think some. I understand it's appropriate this time to bring something. The objections. Submitted. Thank you.
He's noting the objection, but I'd like to just kind of review the staff report.
Well, let's just go down the agenda.
Yeah.
Any other community participation? On to the
Any
next.
more comments, the public? Being none, I'll go to consent agenda.
None.
And we'll move to item number 1, proposition 218, public hearing. Solid waste rates.
Mayor, now is the time to open up public hearing for item number 1 on the agenda for any comment from any member of the public.
Open up now for on item number 1 on proposition 218, public on solid waste management. Yeah, any public discussion on that?
Step up there,
Please.
Randy Ball, I live at 1025 Kentucky Street here in Gridley. And me and my wife are here to protest about the increase 6.62% of the disposable fee. For the seniors mostly, they're on a fixed income. And every amount dollar counts in their pockets and everything else is going up. Now, Waste Management is a $90 billion company. I mean, good for them. But okay, senior citizens just received a 2.8% cost of living raise. And the Medicare is going up by 9.7%, and their health deductions are going up another 26%. And every penny counts for them. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments they'd like to make?
Susan Shore, own 4 properties in the city. Protest is pretty simple. First of all, I don't agree with the fact that you raise it by the CPI. Thank you for doing the 218 because obviously Waste Management doesn't have to do it. quickly gone through your contract with them. I wish you would, do any of you have it in front of you, the contract, or no?
Yes.
Yeah. About the pages I'm referring to here. On page 23, it talks about the fact that the CPI would be 6% if not for the cap. So you have a 6.62% CPI on there. Is that what it's 6.62% increase, which is more than the CPI. The other thing that I'm protesting is the fact that I don't see anywhere where Waste Management gave you the actual fees that they're talking about being increased. If you did, I am not aware of those, and I apologize for that. If they're there, I would like to know where they are, where I could have found those. I do realize the county did raise those fees. The other thing that I think is rather historic was somewhere in here. And number 1.4, which is what page here? Page 5. 1.41. It talks about the Nevada County Clerk's Office. Somebody needs to read your contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruben Gridley. Excuse. I'm unable to read through what I've, so I've only written what I have to say. I would like my son to read it with the body of sent you into the record, please.
And Patrick Coughlin, was that the,
Just read from basic you.
Okay.
the basic unit of measurement within the industry is a volumetric gallon. So I've calculated the cost per gallon of waste for each bin or bin combination and was annoyed to find great inequity. From my perspective, as a single 35-gallon customer, here's what stood out to me. I'm expected to pay $353 a year for my service, but if a heavy user wants a second bin just like mine, that user is allowed to also fill and have it disposed, but for $176, which is half my price. It gets worse. My cost per gallon for disposal is 19.4 cents per gallon. But a resident that asks for a second 95-gallon trash container will only be charged 4.8 cents per gallon, which is 1/4 of my cost. If Waste Management can provide service at that low of a cost, why is mine 4 times as high? I calculated that if I were to pay the lowest price the rich folk receive, my bill would drop from $353 to $88. But if the rich guy has to pay what I pay per gallon, his bill will go from $716 to $1,918. I hope you don't think it's okay to make us subsidize each of these users by $1,202. There's a lot more, but I won't go on. Lower income people produce less trash mostly because they can't afford to generate it. It is distressing to see a rate schedule which forces those with fewer resources to so heavily subsidize the rich. Also, I believe that all rate schedules other than the single 35-gallon bin rate may not meet the Proposition 218 requirements to be less than the cost of production.
Thank you, sir. I realize that not asking you to change the contract. I'm only discussing rates here because that's all discussed here. But I think it's important to know what you're doing if you vote for this. This, I think, is appalling. These rates are appalling. It's the comparable rates. Who gets to pay what? I've given you some examples. I've given you all the detail on this document which you've been given to verify this calculation. So if you get a plan again to, as many of you have, to say, gee, you want to see what you can do to reduce the cost for working people, you have a chance now. But to say, if this is not acceptable, let's go back to the drawing board and come up with rates which do work for everybody in the community. Okay? Not have it one person getting a fourth, paying a fourth of the cost of another. It's not fair, it's not reasonable. So, I am waiting to, because I will share with the community if this passes, who approves it, who doesn't. Because I think this is outrageous to continue this stuff. Thank you so much.
Do we have any more comments, from the public? And then any comments in council?
Yes, I have a comment. First of all, I think at this point, the opportunity for our council and to represent the people very well, to go out to RFP. I think we could at least get a better rate of contract, and then we could find out competitive pricing. I think there's 3 haulers in this area. It's been at least 8 years, if not 10 years, since I've on this council that we went out to RFP. I've asked for it probably every year. And I think today is a good opportunity that we go out to RFP. That's my comment. Because we don't know what our competitive pricing are. And to do our due diligence, I think that we need to find out.
More, maybe a comment. It is my strong belief that government should actually serve actually to improve the quality of life of its residents. Whether they're rich or economic challenge. However, as a city, being it is a city and the residents of the city have a strong say on what we do up here. I feel that the city, and I verbalized this before, should make some provisions for people who have difficulty making all these original payments. And I'm social security myself, so I know exactly what's going on. I would encourage you to actually get as many signatures as you can, so we actually change some of the policies. That's what I can say.
I have a point of view. I have waste management from both the ones we have in the city and out of my ranch. Their competition, I have no problem with them out there. I could cut up a used car and put it in that truck trailer if I wanted to probably. But they're easy to get along with. I don't know what the rates are comparably because it's a dumpster out there and it's bends and down. But I think we should figure out a way to find out what options we have. We need to have competition to get these rates back whatever a competitive level. My comment on.
Were you given a list of the rates of how they arrived at where they were at, other than the 6.62? Or that's just what they came up with and provided you?
Answer. We initially, Waste Management did reach out to us. They did provide us support as to why the increase, the contract allows for a cap of 5. The reason why we did the Prop 218 noticing was because it was higher than what the contract was. So the city wasn't going to allow them just to begin to charge the citizens of the community 6%. When our contract doesn't allow for that. And if it does, then we have to bring it back. There's a clause in there that allows for them to do that, but it has to be through public noticing for them to increase it. That's considered extraordinary costs associated with the landfill. So they received tipping fees that were higher than what they anticipated. Again, that was after the fact that we had the contract with them, but we as a city have an obligation to do a Prop 218 noticing because it's higher than what the normal is. The contract does allow them to approach the city because of those extraordinary costs. But we are also required to notice the public. So that is why it's being presented to you tonight. We do have a contract, but again, this is on for you to decide as a council how you wish to move forward.
So you really haven't answered my question. What is the amount of money they say that they need to increase this?
The amount of money that they are projecting, it was a 15%, I believe. I'd have to look at their letter and give you the exact costs and numbers. But the initial request was for them to increase it by 1% versus doing the entire amount because it was a lot more than 1%. So that is what they provided us, was a letter requesting for more. So I'd have to look to see if they had all the numbers and the specifications on that.
Because according to Prop 218, you have to account for actual costs to the facility or whatever you're doing. I've gone through 3 of these with water districts, so I'm pretty well aware of what's going on. But you still haven't answered my question. Is it $1,000? Is it $25,000? How does that equate to how many bins are in this city?
I'd have to ask them for those numbers.
And they didn't supply you with any of that, I take it.
I'd have to look back at their information that they provided us. It was a letter with the percentage that they were requesting. And they did provide some information, but that is why we're having this hearing today, to get input from the public.
Are they here tonight?
No.
Yes.
Oh, they are, okay. Or
You want to step forward?
So the normal CPI increase is a cap at 5. We were asking for under the 5%. The extra 1.79% is due to the 15% increase at the transfer station for tipping fees.
But I think they're asking if you have actual numbers of operational costs on where you derive the 15%.
We derive the 15% from the tipping fees from the county. So it's an extra 15% higher tipping fee. So what that calculates to citizens is in the rate sheet that was given to the city.
And that's from the November 17th agenda. If you guys want to put it, I just found it. It would be on page 11.
It's part of this. We have the current rate and the adjustments on
So it
here.
should show a current rate. So if you look at like a 35-gallon current rate with the CPI increase and the 1.79% adjustment, what the rate is shown as projected.
Yeah, I think the rate sheet does show the adjustment and the difference on what their current rate is. But I believe her question was
What is the
operationally,
exact amount operationally?
yes,
For this
which,
year?
right, which we didn't receive that.
Okay.
That would be your financial records.
Yeah, we could get that from our financial. They did not give
Am I
us
correct?
that.
That's the information. You're
Yeah.
wanting their exact financial records.
Yeah, you're just, what you've given me is a guess, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, this is what we'd like. I'm gonna put this on a piece of paper and hand it to the city of Gridley. And all you're using is CPI and your 15% or the 1.79. And I'm not sure where that equates to the 6.62, when you said 1.79, but whatever.
So 1.79 is the extraordinary increase above the contracted CPI rate,
So it would be above the 5.
above the 5 max. So we were going to charge less and that total is 6.62. So it's 1.79 is the extraordinary above this.
But there's no, I understand 218, you have to come up with what your
We
actual
need to-
costs are and provide those.
They can't go back and forth. We need to gavel that.
Before, Mike, you were on the water district when one of these went through.
We're gonna have to keep it just one at a time, so we don't have discussion between them. Yeah, I was. Any more discussion from the public?
Just one last comment, I think to clear everything up, like I said before, RFP. And I believe that we can we can work on, a better contract with, whoever comes in at a better price. I think that would solve all of the issues.
That's a couple of comments.
Please.
Well, and also, transitioning from that too, I believe from our conversation back in November about this was in the contract with the city and waste management, we would have to provide a year notice to go out to bid, unless that could be changed if someone were to motion that at some point and open it up. The second thing I wanna say is, if I may, this might not be helpful to answer your question, Ms. Shore, in the audience. But if we go back to the November 17th, 2025 meeting, it does state in the staff report that waste management has submitted a proposed rate increase of 6.62, which exceeds the typical CPI base adjustment. And that is to reflect a 4.83% increase based on CPI and a 1.79 increase associated with the disposal cost changes at Neil Road landfill, which were mentioned tonight by waste management representative. Which the 1.79 increase does reflect an increase of 15.50. Which that looks like that must have been from the county. And that was effective July 1st, 2025. And then I know the waste management representative also said that there was an annual rate adjustment page, and that is also in that report, which I know is not available to you now. But that also details a little bit more of their breakdown, but I would have to admit that even for me, I don't quite understand. They're having a disposal change, a couple different numbers, disposal minus CPI change, disposal allocation, and then somehow they, out of all these different numbers, like 8 numbers, they came down to the rate adjustment of 1.79, which again was mentioned earlier by the waste management representative. And then in my quick financial analysis, even if we look at the proposed rates that are on page 3, if you break down how much a gallon is, let's say for a senior, 35 gallons, the current rate is $23.22, but with the adjustment, it's gonna go up to $24.76. And if you divide that by 35, that's gonna be about $1.40 a gallon. Versus someone who is not a senior, they're actually getting a discount at $29.44. So I would have to align my support with some of the comments mentioned tonight from the audience that even just the breakdown for the senior $35 gallon cost versus the regular residential 35 gallon cost is not equitable. Someone who is not a senior is actually paying less than our seniors. I think that's something for me to vote no tonight. Because that is obviously not fair. If anything, those 2 rates should be reversed if I'm doing the math right. Again, I'm not a financial person. And maybe that's something for waste management to explore, is somehow switching that rate. Our seniors should be receiving the biggest discount that they can. And right now, the way that I'm breaking down these costs per gallon, it's not equitable. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Is it optional to have a target?
State your name.
So I'm new to this, excuse my nervousness. Is it optional to have waste management services? Can it be, my parents who live in town, can they not have that service? And they can collect their garbage, waste, and then go dump it at the local dump site? Because this is going to be a, financial hardship for them with their social security income, which is way below a lot of people here, I'm sure, being, farm laborers, when, as their source of income when they were younger. So is that an option to not have waste management? Or is it all bundled up in the bill?
It's part of an ordinance that we have, and part of that is the issues that we've had with code enforcement when part of keeping the city clean is that each parcel is required to have solid waste services. Because if you're allowing people to not use solid waste. There's some that are gonna be more responsible to do that, but then you have others that won't. And we'll end up with having debris in the alleyways. We'll end up, what ends up happening is you'll have those that choose not to, that are using others' dumpsters and, you know, trash cans.
I can see how
And it will get out of
can
hands.
snowball.
Yes.
And so for waste management people and the city here, this is a financial hardship to the point where we have to decide whether you're going to buy food or paper or garbage, which something that needs to be considered.
Question to waste management representative. I know in the past negotiation that we had, you were able to share with us the number of delinquent accounts. Do you by chance have that information tonight? Which it's to kind of show both sides, right? So obviously how this rate adjustment could be a financial burden for some of our residents, but also I want to give you the opportunity to have the floor. What would be the number of current delinquent accounts that you are facing right now? And I think, does anyone remember what those were last time around? Maybe like 200 residential counts or
So
50?
I don't have the count of the exact number. I know that we're under 15%. So to answer the question of the total operational cost, it's $8,079,651. The CPI increase is 4.83%, so would be the regular increase that's not up for Prop 218. The only piece that's up for Prop 218 is 1.79. The disposal increase minus the CPI increase, so that's the change at the landfill for disposal, is 10.67%. The total adjustment is 16.77%. The disposal allocation is the $8,079,651. And in regards to the difference in price, so those are based on how many customers in that size have. So basically, they take each size, how many customers in that size have service for that size bundle, and then they come up with an average. So that's where the average comes. And some, you are right, based on that percentage, some have higher amounts and some have lower amounts.
So then the reason that perhaps, for example, the senior 35-gallon rate is higher than a regular residential 35-gallon rate would be because there's
less seniors
customer base.
customer base on that size, and there's more customer base on the higher gallon size.
Do you have any cities that perhaps offer with a partnership with you in making that rate lower for seniors? So because we already know that there's such a low base, we want to make sure that
is
why not obviously give them more of a discount if we know this financial situation, right?
So that is something during contract negotiation that can definitely be discussed. So basically, if you look at it at this, let's say you have 20,000 customers and 5% are on the senior rate. You can take that 5% and come up with an average and then move those higher prices. So the difference, so say you want your seniors to be on the 30%, you could then have the other customers have a little bit higher of a rate. So that is something that can be discussed.
Do you guys have income brackets that you could?
Normally,
obviously you have gallon brackets, but do you have any income brackets that are?
Normally in contract, those brackets are based on low income and senior based on like the PG&E low income rate.
And then to go back to your answer or information that you shared about the $8 million operational cost, is that just for servicing the city of Gridley or is that Butte County?
That is, we are only discussing Gridley, yeah, so that's only.
So
Gridley.
to service the city of Gridley, you have an $8 million budget, operational cost, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the yearly.
Yearly, okay. So then how much is the Neal Road landfill? I know that in the November meeting, there was a point about it being a 15%.
It's 16.77% with the increase this year. So it was 15% last year, another 1.77% this year, with it projected to be, again, another increase in the next.
Is that across the board, everybody that dumps?
Everybody who dumps at Neil Road, no matter what waste hauler and no matter what city or county, yes, the dumps there. So everyone has had the increase. There are other options. So my philosophy is I'd rather come to the board and the citizens and say, hey, it's going to be a 1.79 increase this year, instead of when the contract is up and it's time to negotiate, oh, by the way, it's going to be 22% by that time because of the cost of Neil Road, and have a very large increase at one time.
Do you know?
I'm very glad that to hear some residents who came and expressed their feelings. I don't think we heard that before. And I think it's important to be actually integrated into the contract. We try to, or at least I try to promote special service for senior citizens and the citizen. That's all we've been for the last 5 years. That's what I've been doing. I'm glad that another one of our council members now came up with the same idea, which is good. Now there's two of us. So the thing is that we need, maybe eventually you need to renegotiate the contract. Is it possible?
Your contract is up.
Runs through 2028.
Yeah.
So contractually, you would start negotiations in 27.
Yeah, again.
Contractually, you would start negotiations in 27.
We want to start a year before the contract expires to allow for the change, because it takes time for the new hauler. If we decide to go with a different hauler, it takes time to navigate through that. So usually you start negotiations a year before the contract is up, which would be in 2027 next year.
If you decided to go out.
Waste management, and you've heard what's going on here. Costs are horrendous, you know, this is not a high income area. And like they say, every nickel counts around here. And yeah, we won't be able to negotiate, I guess, in 2027, but I think we should be looking at what the competition is doing. Maybe there's somebody that can tighten the bill a little bit more, if the need be. Because when there's no competition, it's just turning the fox loose in the hen house. That's my idea.
Do you have other questions from?
Well, this might be more of a question for our city attorney. I know our city administrator just mentioned that we wouldn't be able to go out to bid till maybe next year, but what are the options? If you're able to share them now publicly.
Yeah, so I would prefer to share those options in a closed session if we're going to talk about other options under the agreement.
So just.
Sure.
I would like to challenge the board to go out and find out what rates are and what companies other cities are using. Orland, Willows, Williams, other small cities, Wheatland's maybe not a good one, but other small cities our size, Los Molinas. Sutter. Yeah, I would like to challenge you to go out and find several of those, not just one, go find several. It can't be that hard.
That would be through an RFP process, which is what we would be doing.
So I have a question, as our city administrator. When can we start an RFP?
Well, there's stipulations, and like I'm gonna say, the contracts, generally, we would start a year before it expires. But we can definitely have closed session about what our options are in this current agreement, which we could agendize it for closed session to discuss that.
See that.
The appropriate response.
Right, and then we could make that decision in closed session.
Would it need to be a closed session item for us to discuss the rates and this proposal tonight before us right now?
I
I mean,
think,
are we able to negotiate these rates now since we have waste management in the room, or is that not allowed under the 218 hearing?
So what is agendized tonight, just for like purposes of clarity, is what is termed under the contract, the extraordinary rate adjustment, which is the, in addition to CPI adjustment, that, you know, Waste Management had not exercised previously. And while the agreement was approved in 2024 and subject to 218, that specific provision has not been exercised previously. And because there was going to be an increasing price for city customers, we thought the prudent thing to do was to send it through another cycle with this specific item agendized for 218. So the item tonight, Councilmember Sanchez, is that additional 1.7 that's been discussed at this point, and whether or not there is sufficient written objections filed with the clerk by way of 218, and then secondarily, whether the council will approve that requested rate adjustment from Waste Management.
What happens if the council doesn't approve it?
Then it's not approved, Mr. Mayor, and we'll go from there.
the only CIP of 4.83, which is allowed in the contract, is what would move forward. Is that correct?
It's true.
They wouldn't get the 6%. They would only be able to increase the rate by 4.83% based on the current contract.
So to clarify for the public in attendance tonight, even if we don't approve it tonight, there would still be an increase, just not significant. And it wouldn't be the complete increase of 6.62, it would be the 4.83.
Right. So I understand.
And if the council does pass it, it would be the full rate adjustment of 6.62.
Yes, the extraordinary request is
Yeah.
is the only portion that is subject to, arguably subject to additional review. The provision's been in the contract the whole time. Just hasn't been used before.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah, because the last increase last year was under CPI.
So you approve the contract with that CPI already in there, but this is exceeding that because of that extraordinary cost, so.
no,
Right.
That makes it clear why we're here tonight. Yeah.
Right.
Do we by chance have the rate adjustment with only the CPI? Because what we have in the staff report is the 6.62. I'm not sure if Waste Management, you guys have those numbers of what the rate adjustment would be with just the 4.83 tonight versus the 6.62.
They would have to redo that schedule, because the one we have tonight only reflects what they're asking for.
Okay. And if you don't have that, I would suggest that should be something you can share with us, is what the adjustment would have looked like with just the CPI of 4.83. And that way, so the public and the council have that. So regardless of what the result is tonight, we can see what that adjustment rate would be. Thank you. That's all.
Anybody else? Any comment, more comment, President? We'll open it up for a motion. Up for a motion, second time. Hearing none, we have no motions.
So if our city administrator or city attorney may help us bring it back then? So because it failed tonight, can you clarify then what the community will see moving forward?
So the answer is.
Please, thank you.
It's neither pass nor fail, but if the mayor moves on, then, and you wish to bring it back, we can do that. That could include a closed session for additional discussion regarding the terms of the contract as they exist. As well as, additional details on the map. For the purposes of what the adjustment looks like without the extraordinary fee increase.
But there will still be an increase even with the motion failing tonight of CPI 4.83,
Because it's already in place.
because that's already in place.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so it's not gonna be-
that's
Still be an
seemingly
increase.
been on everybody's bill for
Okay,
months now.
okay.
Um,
Just want to clarify that for the
Yeah.
record.
No, it's an important distinction for the purposes of the conversation that's gone on, which is to say we're talking about the extraordinary fee increase, not the fee increase schedule that was approved in 2024 with the entire CPI mathematical formula laid out. Yeah.
So with no motion, we can agendize this later after closed session discussion on.
That is true, Mr. Mayor.
About a little bit more and see what, that visual where we're at.
Is that your direction?
That's my direction. We'll move on. Move on, item number 3, safety element update.
Mr. Mayor, we have to go on 2. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So Mayor.
I'm sorry. Before we close out item 1, it should be put on the record what written protests were received.
Close public hearing also.
And yes,
So, Mr. Mayor, you should close public hearing for the record.
Seeing no more participating in public, we'll close public hearing.
and then Madam Clerk can bring forward whatever written objections were received pursuant to the 218 notice.
I received 4 formal written notices. Formal written protests.
So
It's not good.
so the objection fails as it's not a majority.
No motion was presented. Okay, you clear?
Yes.
Now we're to mid-year budget review.
Mayor and Council, this is just a follow-up of the study session we had earlier. Staff respectfully request the City Council approve resolution 2026-R-003. We had some discussions on the mid-year budget, so if you guys have any more questions or want me to go over anything else, did answer any questions.
Any discussion? We vote on this one, I think.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Is there here a vote on it? Public. I'm sorry. Public, do you have any comments from the public? Hearing none. Entertain a motion.
Motion that we approve resolution 2026-R-003, a resolution of the city really authorizing the modification of the fiscal year 2026 budget by appropriating supplemental funds. I'll second.
Okay, second, roll call please.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Calderon,
Yes.
Mayor Barth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 3. Planning solutions for safety element update.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors.
What's you?
It's already open.
Hey, Dana. That's a good job. That sounds like you want to. It's faster.
Yeah. Did you do that? Okay, you're not. In any case, it's okay. We're here tonight to present request to give our administrator permission to negotiate and execute a contract with a consulting firm, Atlas Planning Solutions, to update our safety element. The safety element is a part of the it's tied to the housing element, as we've talked about before in the past. And what drove that is this legislation from 2018, Senate Bill 1035, which what it really talks about is how when you're planning for growth and you're bringing in more humans and more activity, then you kind of have to be mindful of the safety changes and how that impacts the community. And so it makes sense for why they do it, but it is mandated. So typically you would work on these things at the same time. But there is more teeth in that housing element than there is in the safety element. So we want to knock that out quickly. So in addition to that, we will have to make the safety element align with the housing element. So we can't necessarily work on them together, but that's okay, because the same way we had to kind of rush through that housing element, we're kind of in the same bind with the safety element. So what we're trying to do is get into compliance. And that is really the priority, is to make sure that, we are doing everything right by the book on paper, even if we're not doing everything we might want to do right now. So why Atlas Planning Solutions? Well, if you're just trying to get into compliance, then what becomes a big priority is the financial of it. So all of a sudden, what is the most affordable? What's the most cost effective? Atlas Planning Solutions had great resumes. They have done the job before, and they have a history of doing well. And they came in at the lowest, but at the highest, we were looking at maybe about 125,000, and went down to about 90,000, but down to about 60,000. So it wasn't by a huge margin on the low end, but by a huge margin against the bigger end. Now, those bigger numbers would have meant more work into the housing element or into the safety element, maybe been more detailed work, and we could have maybe got more accomplished by doing so. But because we are so far behind in the housing element to begin with, and now the safety element, we'll be doing this again in just a few years. We'll be back into the RFP process, and we'll be looking to amend all this stuff and update everything again. So in the short term, Atlas came in with a great bid, with a good background, good experience. At $50,000, that was our bargain offer. And so that's what we'll be looking at. And that's a pretty hard number for the contract. Now, as we're doing this, we're also going into some other activity that they can influence this. So looking at our emergency operations plan, looking at how it ties into our hazard mitigation plan. And there's also going to be some environmental stuff going on, some initial studies and that sort of thing for some maps coming up. So as we're doing all of these things at once, I think it's important to give some fluctuation and know that, some things may come up that we're not really thinking about right now. And when we start tying all these documents together, having that ability to say, you know what, we need to set somebody aside to really focus on this and make sure they get this into the safety element right now, so that we're protected for the next 6 years, that we're covering the bases. So that's where giving the administrator authorization to amend up to 10% for flexibility really has a lot of value there. Now, obviously, this isn't a project. No dirt's gonna be moving through this. Doesn't force anything to happen. It just gives some guidelines to make sure that when we do move dirt, we do it safely. So this is not an issue with CEQA. And should you approve this this tonight, then we'll probably have a contract signed by the end of February. And then this will go on for about 9 months from there. That is the schedule that they proposed. And they have detailed out in their proposal what happens at different stages. But that should land us into finalizing it towards the end of the year. And you guys would then be looking at it here and hopefully have it adopted by the end of 2026. Would be outrageous, be early 2027, or even get it done by November or something. But that's the general outline. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, I have a question, Mayor. Which, so I know this is only gonna cost 50,000 plus the maybe 10%. But with this, is this going to generate some work that we might have to do to make corrections with what they're evaluating? And would there be a cost to that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a fair question. And I couldn't tell you that for certain. Chances are that, because this is done repetitively every 8 years, chances are that we're not going to be so far out of compliance that we have to make major changes. And because we're not making the effort to go above and beyond to make a dramatically different document, the changes won't likely be as impactful as it potentially could be. Oftentimes, the safety element is a very high-level document where it gives broad guidelines, but it doesn't necessarily force you to take immediate action.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was, good deals come with.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, no, in this case, it's low effort, low resource.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have a question. So for example, since we're looking to potentially build out towards Biggs, if I know there's a conversation of an additional police station or fire station out there, that would be part of this safety element.
That will absolutely be evaluated. Yeah, again, this will likely be really a baseline evaluation on all these things. So there won't be a big deep dive into everything, but we'll definitely try and touch on as much as possible and make sure that it aligns with all of our other documents so that they speak nicely to each other and it's smooth for guidance. We don't want, the big problem is if you have documents that conflict each other. One document says you have to do this, the other one says you can't do that. You're like, so.
And then last question, would you be consulting with the county sheriff? Obviously our city chief here. What does that look like? Sorry if I missed it in your presentation.
No, it wasn't presentation. So it would be our police department, not so much the county. That's kind of outside of our jurisdiction, but I know that the chief is interacting with the county, so that kind of branches out in that direction. It's just not me directly.
Thank you.
There's 50,000 roughly. Is there any grants or anything that we can go after to help pay for this?
Not in front of me. It's something that we talked about with California consultants. And they couldn't dig up anything. And it could be something that if we got ahead of it, far enough ahead of it, then it's something we could have planned for better. But we kind of came into this with everything 2.5 years behind, and it's just a now. We have to get it done now. So going into the next cycle, 2030, we'll probably start looking at these, both the housing and the safety element, in 2028. And that'll give us good lead time to start planning for these things and get ahead of them. Oftentimes, when there are grants for these things, you don't get that money for another year or two. So, unfortunately, we can't just go out and stack something real quick.
Conceivably, some of these items that they come up with for 50, maybe not now, but in the future, be mandated by the state or the federal, and then we can get some reimbursement. I'm not gonna get that money back.
I agree, Mayor. That's a fair sentiment. Unfortunately, sir, These are oftentimes referred to in the planning arena as unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
This is a common issue that everyone throughout California suffers from, and likely federally too. It does seem that California is a little heavy-handed with these mandates, so these hurt smaller communities especially.
I just want to turn over every stone in the can to see if there's something.
That's fair. Well, certainly moving forward, that is something that we'll have our finger on that pulse, absolutely.
Any comment, gentlemen? No. Any comment in the public? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I motion to adopt resolution 2026 R 004, authorizing the city administrator to negotiate, execute, administer professional services agreement with Atlas Planning Solutions. An amount not to exceed 50,000 for preparation of an update to the city of Gridley safety element, including authority to approve amendments up to 10%.
Second.
Motion second, roll call please.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Calderon.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 4. Grove Street extension update options.
Mayor and council, city staff has been working collaboratively with consultants. And what you have before you is just, we're requesting that you provide direction on the Laurel Street extension for the following options. And in looking at the Laurel Street, we do have a subdivision that's out there right now currently breaking ground, which is the CHIPS Pacific Flyway subdivision. We recently worked on the dedication for the easement for the street on the opposite side by that was relating to the school district's property. There is additional land there. And one of the concerns we have is just in looking into grants and funding for this street. We talked about possibly Melrose in the past. But one of the options that staff has been working on is having potential funding source through a CDBG grant. In meeting with California Consulting, we needed to provide a connection and access to infill housing. And this is all city limits. The road extension that we are talking about was on Laurel Street, would provide safe travel to schools, businesses, as well as reduce wear and tear on other local roads. It's approximately 1,200 feet west of Randolph Avenue with a 60-foot wide right-of-way, including roadway, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and both sides of the street adding a drain pipe in the existing drain ditch. Extending the water line to loop the system to the new development and existing sewer line in the current location will be evaluated. Will evaluate the condition for potential replacement and upsizing as part of the project. The Laurel Street extension would also improve the safety, connectivity, the circulation, access for existing and planned infill housing areas within city limits. So the grant funding opportunity is to cover approximately $3 million through the Community Development Block Grant CDBG NOFA. This competitive grant expires, the deadline is April. So we are trying to work quickly on determining what can be done. Part of again, going back to grants, in order to qualify for a lot of the grants, they have to be shovel ready. So part of getting this project shovel ready would be to include some of the design work and to include design plans, specifications, a cost estimate, notice to bidders. The application again is scheduled for April 2nd. This is a really tight schedule. There's additional options that we kind of evaluated when we were discussing this. So we wanted to bring it to your attention to get feedback from you. The city wanted to develop the bid documents and secure the right of way, which is the most critical part. So when you go through a CDBG NOFA application, there's a list of requirements in order for you to qualify, and one of them is site control. So site control is that we have some agreement for the site location as well as the estimate of the costs. The estimated cost for the project for this specific location is $3.1 million. Including the 15% contingency. And then again, through the housing tools, we've discovered that we didn't meet one of the other deadlines, which was for getting pre-approval for planning efforts for the grant. So we're trying to cover these funds now to get us bid ready for the future. If we don't meet this NOVA for April of this year, we'd have to go out for the following year. But at one point or the other, we should prepare and begin preparing these cost estimates, because when we do go out for these grant applications for a 3 million grant at zero match with CDBG, we want to make sure that we're shovel ready. Our engineer and design engineers, the in-house expertise, they have resources, they have a knowledge of the city to complete the design in a short time frame. They have provided available resources to meet the funding deadline. Bennett Engineering is here as well, and they can discuss what they see as far as providing project management, data collection, project design, utility coordination, permitting, and bid documents for the road extension project. The financial impact for this design phase that we're talking about, for them to do the work, would be $149,415 for engineering services. If you approve that, we can move forward with the supplemental appropriation in a future meeting. But I wanted to review some of the options. Authorize the city administrator to execute the contract and have Bennett Engineering go ahead and move forward with the design to try to meet the deadline. That would be at a cost of $149,000 approximately. Pursue the CDBG grant. The deadline is April 2nd. So we would get to work right on this quickly as possible with Bennett and try to meet the April 2nd deadline for funding. We can wait on the submittal of the grant, but still move forward with the design. Or we can wait on the design and approve and go after a planning grant next year. So there's different options. We can try to meet this deadline and get the design work done. Or we can try next year for the design work and see if we get a planning grant to pay for that design work.
Do we know, will you be able to do it in time?
If we start tomorrow, we can get this done. I need to get a topographic survey done before I do anything else.
I don't know if you want to, and also introduce.
Recommend on the next one.
Oh.
So yeah, we've taken a good look at this, put together some numbers. I did notice that the estimate that was included in the packet, we had a couple flying around, and that was a previous one. We were able to bring the cost down. So it doesn't match the number in the staff report. The number in the staff report is correct. So yeah, it is a tight timeline, but we do have the resources. We can pull it at the office to pull this design together. There's a couple with some of the data gathering. We need a geotech report and we need surveying. Geotech report is not as critical to get us to that April 2nd, but it is required to do the pavement design. As we've seen all over town, the geology is different everywhere, so we want to make sure we get a good street in there. But the survey is most critical. So, with authorization, I can get the surveyor moving as early as this week, and they assured me they could get it to me in 2 weeks, and then we would just hottail it to get us.
You're 99% sure you can get it done by April.
Not
89,
well,
85.
and so the way the grant is written, they say that it's bid ready, and we have to sign a certificate that it can go out to bid. But until you have a funding source, your bid docs aren't ready. Right? We can have all that paperwork, but until you actually get that agreement from CDBG, we will still have to make revisions. So we will get them to a point where we can certify that they're bid ready, and that's what they're looking for. So it's substantially complete in a sense. So like if it took a little longer for me to get the geotech report, that's a little spec change that I can add to it as an amendment or, a change right before we fix it. So yes, the plans and specs, we're 99% sure we can get you there.
We waited a year. Costs are gonna go up.
Well, if we wait a year, we could try to go after a planning grant to pay for that design work.
The 149,000.
Yeah, but that's probably gonna be higher in a year. The other thing too, to take into consideration, is there's one subdivision there, which is Pacific Flyway. Their access into that development as they start building out, is gonna be through J Drive. So, again, this is something that we've talked about, as a city, we wanna be proactive, not reactive to waiting to see if there's issues with that access, the only access in there. We want to take into consideration the youth that has to ride their bikes and go to school and parent drop off and bus routes and everything. So I think we've always been looking at that additional access. We have part of the dedication that was done on one side. There still is probably another property owner that we'd have to reach out to, that we have, myself and Chris would be reaching out to, Ratliff. So this is, you have options, whether you go after the planning grant next year and try to get that forward. And in the meantime, there's probably gonna be some houses there that we'll be accessing through J Drive. What is the timeline on that? I don't know.
So it's difficult to say at this stage because it's really weather driven, but it could be as early as late summer or as late as early winter or mid fall or something like that. So, and then I think their intention is to phase them out, is what we talked about. So
They said 10, they would do 10 and kind of, test the waters with how fast they sail and then, plan their next phase of vertical build. So.
Can I make a comment and stuff right quick? Laurel Street, I'm not sure is within 500 feet of my property. I'd like to try to get a clarification of that if I can before I make a comment.
What's your address?
It's 1895 Magnolia Street.
She might be subject to having to recuse herself.
Mike also. Yeah. 500 feet. Close. I just need to know before if I can make any comment or not.
Give me that address one more time.
What's the
1895 Magnolia Street. Yes, that's me.
You have to step down.
So within 500.
Then 500.
Yeah. The new addition, not Laurel Street itself. The new addition, yeah, I just wanna make sure that the
Off of Laurel and Randolph. That's all. He's right around the corner from you.
just a second. I'm sorry?
I said, does it matter what side of your property?
It does.
272 feet from the back corner.
So you have to recuse yourself.
Should I stay up here?
Yes, no, you should step down.
Okay, I'm gonna step down. You might check.
And-
You might not.
Good, so I hope you have a corner.
I don't want outside, it's all good.
You're good.
Much further.
Sanchez, I think you're good.
Oh, yeah, I'm like way down.
Calderon, I think he's good too.
Yeah. He could.
I have a feeling you're probably within
300 feet.
You probably are closer to
500.
Yeah, you're gonna be.
You're gonna be right there too. You're probably gonna have to step down some.
Oh, yeah, you're,
He's right around the corner.
99.
Oh, I'm not on.
499.
he's 390 if I'm. Oh, wait. You got the wrong number. One more.
406. It's not on.
466.
Yeah, so you will have to recuse yourself. I'll hand the gavel over to,
Do I gotta go away?
That's yours.
Wow.
Yeah, who's longest tenured up there?
longest tenure,
Sanchez and Calderon,
Sanchez and Calderon.
Rochambeau.
Oh, no, death match.
Mayor, you can assign, you can hand over the gavel to either.
Those two, I'm junior.
Me, okay, thank you. Thank you. So going back to the recommendations, do we have any council comments?
We'll note for the record, the recusing of Mayor Farr and Vice Mayor Johnson for the record.
Yeah, so for the record, we have asked and verified, well, first we have verified with our city engineer, Dave Carden, as to the distance between the residents of two of our council members, or mayor and vice mayor, and they have been asked to be recused after Dave Carden confirmed that they live within 500 feet of the Laurel Street extension, agenda item before us right now.
Again, just referring back to what options you have. Whether you want to continue with the design work that Dave feels you can try to get done. And we try to meet that April 2nd deadline. Or we move into applying for a grant next year. We don't know, by then we'll have homes built out there. They will be accessing that area through J Drive. Because there will only be one access in there.
What's the time frame on the project where people start moving in?
That's
Estimating.
End of the year, probably.
So before people start moving in, they have to sell the homes. If they get homes in there by late summer, then there could be people in there by fall. But if it's not until winter time, obviously winter is usually a slow time for selling real estate, but it's kind of a big gap. There's no real precision in this.
But roughly end of the year, they could have people living there that are gonna be going down J Drive and.
the other thing to consider too is if we do, let's say that we reach the April 2nd mark and we have all the plans there, and let's just say worst case scenario, we don't get that grant funding. The fact that you have it shovel ready and you have all the specs, the site control, we could try to go through a grant through California Consulting for a different type of grant too. So we don't stop looking for funding for it. It's just how soon do you want to get the design work and all the bid and all of the work that our engineering has to do to get that ready for shovel ready. So it's all a timeline and how soon. The longer you take, the more expensive it is. The longer you take, we're still in line for trying to go and wait for the new grants to open up.
So when is the awarding notifications of the grant? And then by the time we could have access to those funds to get this constructed, would that be this year or not until next year?
We would find out about the award, well, the deadline is April, but it takes them several months. I don't think till the end of this fiscal year.
I think they would notify us come the next federal fiscal year because I think it is HUD, housing, what is it? HUD.
Oh, it's
Anyway,
federal?
Yeah, there's a federal backing to it, yeah. So the environmental permitting will require NEPA and CEQA, and so that's what we have in there to help with. I don't expect it to be a hard environmental push because it's already an access road. There's already utilities in it. We're just improving upon what's already there. So we kind of fall under, I'm not the environmental consultant, but I would push to have it be a category exception. Again, we're improving on what's already there.
Our finance director has a comment.
The expected award is in September of this year.
Thank you.
The other thing too to note is it is in an area that we have verified that it's low mod, so it qualifies under the CDBG program income requirements. So we do have housing tools specialists that specialize in that that are working with us, but we need to kind of move forward quickly if we're going to move on this year's NOFA.
And just one other thing to keep in mind, and I guess this would go for any funding year, but the fall and winter is like our best time to advertise and to do bidding because usually the contractors are looking to line up their next year's work. So as opposed to like bidding something in the spring when they already got projects lined up, we're a lot more likely to get, very competitive bids for a project like this. So just, again, it might be the same the next year if we got the same kind of funding, but the more ready we are to go, the better off we're gonna, the prices we're gonna.
And I know there's no sidewalks along that Randolph. Is it possible that we can probably check to see if part of the road would be the sidewalk for?
We include curb returns there because we'll have to put in a crosswalk across the new Laurel Street. So it'll
Right.
have curb ramps that could eventually be tied into sidewalks. If the school ever develops their property, they for surely are going to put sidewalks, so they would have somewhere to connect. We could pursue other funding for a gap closure on Randolph. In the future, there's not enough money in this grant to, keep building more sidewalks, but it does, gap closures are perfect projects for CMAQ funding. BCAG has their, allocation. They're getting ready to do a call for projects. This one's not quite ready for it, but we're looking at some other projects we've been talking, like Fairview and stuff that we could go after for CMAQ funding. So yeah, there's ways in the future to pay for this kind of, those kind of improvements.
So you guys are ready to move on that, right?
Yeah.
It says he can get it.
For April 2nd.
That's the goal.
That's a good idea.
It's a
I
tight deadline, but I think we can.
sooner the better.
And there's no match. Which I'm trying to think, is there a match? I don't believe so, right, Mari? So that's even better. I love grants with zero matches.
Yeah. But I would say I would support going out or having been engineering, do the design and then apply for the grant. Because again, if the housing goes in before the sidewalk, which likely is gonna happen regardless, we're gonna have kids, families trying to cut across. And so the sooner we can expedite this, the better.
Yeah, it will definitely add to the safety of travel, vehicular and pedestrian, instead of having a dark backwoods, farm road.
How many houses are going into that first project?
About 70.
70.
They're all low.
A lot of people down J Drive.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're all
Yes. Again, we want to be proactive,
Mhm.
not reactive. So this is part of that plan.
Do you have like not a permanent, but like in case the houses do go up, do we have like a plan in play right now to prepare? Maybe reducing the dirt level, I don't know, I'm not.
The only thing I can think right now without doing a full development is to put in like a fire police access gate at the eastern side of the CHIPS housing or the Pacific Flyway. So at least emergency services have another way to get in there as opposed to just going down J Drive. So, but other than that, I mean, it's a gravel road. And yeah. A lot to do there.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from the council?
No, I think we should go ahead right now.
And no, all right, and then I'll open it up to the public. Any comments?
This is talking about the property off our Randolph, that development's going in back there. That seems cool.
Yes, sir. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, that's that one. Because I understand it seems to me you're talking about funding that with general fund.
The design of it.
Is
yes,
it
sir.
purpose?
The design of it, so that we can apply for a grant.
Design of it.
The design of this curb sidewalks, gutters.
The street extension of Laurel Street.
Well, my concern is this, is that for all other developers, they put in their own streets. And they do it, and then they dedicate it to the city. It's their opinion. So they're dying to do that. Why is it suddenly the city's dying to go to Laurel Streets? That's the first thing. Because I understood the developer was gonna cover going half of the road. Okay, from his development to the street, and then the what do you call it, the school district would have to, it should, they want to wait till they figure out what they're gonna do before they do their half. Okay, and run two on one half till then, which I understood it was to work. But now it seemed like talking about doing it for them. I would object to that, because you don't do that for anybody, any other developers. Why are you doing it for this developer? Basically, just because it's city property, he should still have the responsibility for putting in the road. Okay, he has the responsibility if he's on his property. You just put the road away. Secondly, I don't see any push on anything. There's access from that property directly through back of, I forget the name of the thing, the old old subdivision.
Yeah, it's
Old subdivision.
J Drive,
The J Drive, there's access to that directly from the Blusa Highway through J Drive to that development. So they can drive in, drive out, walk in, walk out. In fact, I would guess most kids walking north will keep going right up there through J Drive. They can skip walking down Randolph Street. So, you know, you don't have, there's no necessity. Seems to me the only necessity here is trying to get the city to what it costs. And I think you should be very wary of that. Okay, because other developers be really upset. Okay, but you know, jump in and do their streets for it. Why should you do this? Do it for this development. Okay, but if you get it covered, to help them get it covered by grants and all that, that's fine. But I don't think you should consider it all paying for it rather than the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coughlin.
I think I wanted to add that we did talk about the school district, and they don't have any they don't know when they're gonna be building out there, so. We don't know when we're gonna see funding from that source. As far as the other entities, they don't have a map right now.
Edler is still valid until September 2026, and they have the space according to the Subdivision Map Act to extend roughly about 1 year. Although I'm looking into some other options that we might be able to help them out with.
Who is this?
The Edler Estates.
And so the street, if the other option the city talked about was getting someone to come in and assist with Melrose, and what ends up happening is that's passed on to the people buying these homes. That's why we're looking at grant funding, because it's free money to build there, because a CHIPS development's going in, and because it's a low mod area. And then there's a zero match on a $3 million estimate, so that's why it's before you. The city would have to, the cost is correct, it's 149 for the city to do the design work, but you're gonna need that to apply for the grant. So.
And then are you allowed for city staff to answer to the remark made about why, in this case, the developer may not be contributing to the work on the extension? And at what point does it become the city's responsibility versus developer to the construction of sidewalk, gutter, and curb?
Generally, the city, correct me if I'm wrong, the developer would come in and pay a portion of that dedication. They would do that through their agreements.
So part of the challenge here is that Pacific Flyway is an affordable development. So they're catering to 80% AMI, and which leaves a very small margin. So that's one element of it. There's nothing to force Edler Estates to move forward. So this could sit dormant for who knows how long. And as our administrator noted, the school district is quite a ways out from doing anything with that property. So if nobody does anything, then they're just left with this dirt road, and that could sit indefinitely. So this is a way of being proactive, and I respect the comment from the public that it is a cost to the city and a burden to the city. It's trying to balance out, where can we, if we can get $3 million at the investment of 150,000, is that worth, moving forward on something like this so that we don't end up in this hole where this road never gets built out for another decade or something.
The other thing too is we need to think about the safety aspect of access into that development. I don't know if we have fire here, but I mean, there's a safety aspect as we build these, yes, is it a cost to the general fund? Yes. But you have the safety aspect of all of these
70 families.
these 70 families that are going to be living here. Do you really want to consider maybe forcing the developers to pay and putting a Mello-Roos on residents that are going to be moving in there? So the developer is going to collect no matter what. But if we can build that road with free money,
It's an investment.
yes.
And I will just say a couple other comments. We did have the village. They would have had another access through that development, the village at Eagle Meadows, but we don't know when or if that development's going to come back. So that would have provided another access to Calusa Highway there. But yes, the plan for Edler was to extend the road, but they didn't have all the right of way. We now have the school's right of way. Again, we went through that process so that the city now has rights to access that portion of the school. And, again, we don't know if they're going to develop or not. We are, trying to communicate with them. We've reached out because we still do need their cooperation to secure that right away that they were going to deed to the city anyway. We just don't, at this point, do we want to wait for them to come along if they come along? Or, do we want to make some moves and again, invest in the city? And maybe that inspires some more growth. There's other lands out there within the city limit to be developed. And as we're growing, this is a conduit to help that, maybe make it more attractive.
Because technically you could just let it sit there.
Yeah.
But just recall, it's J Drive into that subdivision. There's no other access in there.
And I will say, based on safety, that once you get past Butte and you're heading west towards what will be the chips, you've got old decrepit orchards that aren't being used anymore. There's a ditch right there that, I'm sure gets full of garbage and all kinds of stuff. We just covered a ditch in Biggs that somebody actually drowned in, And so, those are safety hazards they're gonna walk there. They're gonna travel that road to get home if they're coming through town, as opposed to walking all the way out to the highway and back down. So, it is a little bit of foresight of, what do we want to deal with going on in the woods back there with our kids, walking around and doing whatever they do as kids.
Yeah. Thank you, city staff. Any other public comment? All right, we'll close public comment. I'll entertain a motion on agenda item number 4.
All motion to authorize city administrator to execute task order 16-607-300 with Bennett Engineering Services to manage, design, and prepare construction documents for the Laurel Street Extension Project in the amount of $149,415. So it is shovel ready project.
And second,
Is that you motioning for B as well?
And B.
Yes.
Do we need to get that clarified? Claire?
That's to pursue the grant for the due date of April 2nd.
Yes.
Okay, to include that, and that's included in your second, okay. Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Calderon.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that that's a typo, it's supposed to be April of 2026.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
Our, yeah, well,
I don't have to use it.
We're on item number 5, Mayor.
Round 5.
Yes.
Okay, item number 5, so we can introduction to the draft Ridley design and construction standards, specifications and details.
Hi, Mayor and Council. First off, I'd like to introduce Logan Howard. I know a couple of you have got to meet him. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mayor and Council. It's Logan Howard. Been a practicing civil engineer for going on 11 years working in the field. Newly with Bennett Engineering here, but did a lot of work on these city details and standards for the city here.
Might tell who your dad is.
Yeah. So my dad, Randy Howard, is the general manager of Northern California Power Agency. So that's why there's some familiar faces here with me.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring Logan in today and wanted to introduce you guys to him. This is why we're going to be able to get these plans done in, by April 2nd, because I have help. It's not just me. And so I thought it was important that you can see some of the faces that help us get great things done in Gridley. So today we have, I don't know, it's like 185 pages that we want to go through with you. No, just kidding. We have put together the whole package. I know, few years ago, we talked about bringing these in pieces, and with everything that's gone on between parks and highways and water pipes and you name it, we've been scratching at these, and we finally just made the push to get them here at this meeting. So ideally, we have a little slideshow and we'll walk you through them. The gist of this, though, is, our old details a little outdated. Some of them go back to 96. We want to be able to give clear direction to our developers, our contractors, our public works staff on how things, how we want to see things. See if we can get a presentation.
It's just a presentation.
Oh, not the scan. Great.
Go.
What is it?
There it is.
But it's not screen sharing. 1 second. I have to do it through here. Huh. Oh, there it goes. Well,
You can go to the next slide. So just a quick agenda. We'll go through the purpose of this. I just kind of mentioned some of it. And then we're just going to do a brief hit on each of the sections that we are going to have. And then we'll talk about this public comment period. So, and we'll kind of tag team this presentation. So again, generally, you can go to the next slide. Purpose of these are to provide some consistency, accountability, sustainability. We want it to be efficient. So when our developers come, we know exactly what to give them, and they know exactly what we're asking. Ideally, we're going to encourage some growth of the city. Now we've got, standards that people are familiar with. And also, protecting our infrastructure, make sure we get quality products going in so that they hold up to the test of time. And then, just support our communities. So our general details and specifications, so we have a section at the front. This is all an update with all of our abbreviations, our definitions, also the references to general accepted standards. These acronyms up here are all like American Water Works, Caltrans. Some of our old standards would reference their old standards. They update theirs a lot more than we update ours. So one of the things we wanted to do is make sure that we're always using the most current. So we put language into our specifications so that the developers know. Make sure you go and find the most current standard if we're referencing a Caltrans or American Water Works. And so as standards change, we don't have to always come back and update these. They'll just go with the industry standard because that's what we're referencing. And then, most importantly, we're setting clear precedents as to what these developers need to be building to. We accept plans through the plan check process. That always takes precedence, but then if something's not included in that, they have a fallback on the city standards and then maybe state requirements after that. So go on to the next slide. Kick it over to that.
Yeah, so, as we kind of walk through each of these sections, like Dave said, there's that forward, these general, changes and things like that. But so we're going to just highlight a couple of key changes from what we had previously. It's reflected in both the details and the specifications, but really when it comes to drainage, requiring any new development to evaluate both the 10-year, storm event as well as a 100-year event. Clarifying drainage report requirements so that we have consistency in submittals that we're receiving and records that we're keeping. Easy for people to see what's been evaluated previously and build off of that as development continues. And then setting a standard for what is required of a developer for the city to take on any of these features in the future, should they choose to go down that path.
And when we talk about that, it's the detention ponds, it's the piping of canals, those kind of things that we get a lot of pushback, in the community or from our partners. So it's drainage driven, but then we're also, making sure that we're addressing, the easements that are required and all that kind of stuff.
Hey, that's pretty important, really, is drainage.
100%. That's why that was our first slide on the details, is because it is the most important thing that we have to deal with our flat grades. We deal with a lot of, we have to put our water line under a storm drain because there's just not a depth to meet the state standard of keeping it a foot above, right? These drainage ditches aren't very deep when it comes right around to it. And then they've got to make their way all the way to the rivers. So our sewer details, this was a pretty good update on here. Our old details call out clay pipe and, we want to just keep everything moving in the direction that industry is. So, updating for precast concrete manholes, our PVC pipe, even things as like detectable tape so that, we could actually go out with a detector and find our pipe as opposed to just, trying to put a camera down it. So there are little things that go into the details, but they make a big difference in how we operate and how we maintain our system.
Yeah, so updating, for the water details and specifications, right? Setting very clear procedures for tie-ins, better clarifying, what's required for contamination control, for cleaning, for, fire flow expectations within the city for any new development. And then also changing all fire hydrants from the previous dry hydrants to wet hydrants to improve fire response in these new communities and new developments.
So our street details, that was actually a pretty good, there's a lot of details in streets. So this was a good effort that we put in here. For me, one of the biggest ones that I think is really going to help the longevity of the city is we had an old spec that required like 2 inches of asphalt over like 8 inches of aggregate base. That doesn't leave enough to come in and to do a grind and overlay on the streets. So these developers, they love it. It's cheap streets, but in 20 years, 15 years, they're beat up. And if they weren't constructed properly, you're going to get potholes and all that. So we've upped the street surfaces. We've upped the index on how we decide based on traffic what that would look like. Same thing with the sidewalk. It used to be 4 inch over 2 inches of sand. Again, it just doesn't give enough base to actually get the compaction and everything we did. So again, just bringing it up to industry standards so that, we're getting that infrastructure that people see every day that's going to last us a lot. We might have been getting before. And then, making sure our signage is consistent with, California standards. There's a lot in there. So that's just touching on a few of them.
Trenching. So what we did is we pulled out trenching into a standalone specification because it kind of covers all of these different utilities. But what we really want to see is consistency in trench protections and, the safety of these trenches, but also in the way that contractors are actually developing trenches, but also closing them in the roads and the streets, right? We want to make sure that it's just the same regardless of whether it's a water utilities or anything else going into the ground.
Questions? So can you describe the trench then again? Is that where you have to cut into the concrete to access piping?
Yeah, it could be the concrete, could be the asphalt, not necessarily to access something, right? To place something new in a street that's been paved only 3-4 years ago, right? A trench might be needed for new fiber cable or something of that nature. If that's going to happen, we want it to be consistent across the board with what that repair looks like, what the backfill looks like, and just making sure that it's the same regardless of utility.
So let me ask you this, so while they're performing the work or when it's done?
So trenching specifically, all of these standards and specifications, have specific requirements for both while they're performing the work and when it's done. They provide general guidelines for performing that work, right? Standards such as like AWWA, right? American Water Works Association, following their procedures for cleaning and disinfecting pipe. We're referencing the most current, most up-to-date standard for that. So that's while they're doing work, but then when they're done with work, as well, how they close out, how they backfill, what their compaction has to be.
So like right now, if somebody is opening a trench, is there somebody there watching them?
Not necessarily, like, we're not requiring specific safety restrictions, right? More so OSHA would be doing something like that. But what we do require in our trenching specifications is consistent dewatering operations if there's water encountered, right? With such high groundwater here in town, making sure that that's something that's communicated to the city before a trench is open, right? What does that dewatering look like? What is that? How's that being?
I mean, anybody who does business in Gridley knows that the water is
right.
Okay, I mean, so far it sounds great, but I guess one of my few concerns I have would be, are we adding more restrictions or standards higher than what the basic standard is in California?
No.
We're not making it more difficult for developers to come in here.
No, if nothing else, so Caltrans is the gold standard they are the standard in California, right? And so a lot of our streets and likely some of our trenching is going to refer to the Caltrans standard. Compaction, what's required for compaction. Where we might differ is what kind of material do we want around the bedding of our pipe? If the city really likes sand, or we want to lean towards using, we call it slurry, the slang term is slurry seal or slurry backfill. We want to allow that in areas where we might be trying to get a pipe over a storm drain and we don't have the cover that we need. So what are we going to do to protect that pipe when we're doing that? So those kind of things. Other things with the trench is we want a T-section, what they call, so you have your trench, but then we want them to cut out a little bit of, grind out a little bit more asphalt so that when they come back in, your seam of your asphalt isn't right on your trench wall there where you would get water penetrating down in there. You offset a little bit, it's tack coated.
So, but that's a standard like in Orville or Tico or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not making it even more difficult for.
No.
Okay.
And I think, to kind of refer to like where we were, some of the standards haven't been updated necessarily since 1996, right? They just haven't been, brought up to where everybody else is. And it's giving us that consistency, right, for developers.
So some of them didn't even exist. We found them in other cities and said, this is a good spec that we want to, we did work with your public works staff to say, is this something, that would work for you guys? Because every city's different, but But in general, we're just trying to make it so that, like you said, if we have a road and somebody wants to put a trench, I mean, we don't want that Frankenstein look afterwards. We definitely don't want the potholes. I know all of you have driven down 99 and that crappy trench job that they've done in the right-hand lane. That will be fixed by the time this is all said and done, but you know, we want to avoid that on our city streets.
I mean, we need at least, what we need to straighten up now is what developers look at when they walk through the door downstairs and say, what's the requirements? What are we gonna be doing? What do we need to do to pass inspections and stuff? We need to fix that. We know that for sure, so let's at least get on that. Yeah, I just don't wanna see any, standards are great and we get better ways of doing things and making things last longer for the city of Gridley. I wanna see developers looking at Gridley and go, yeah, we can go anywhere else and do work that Gridley is, so.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, and the goal really is to make sure that these documents are talking to each other now more than anything, right? Like, let's just be consistent from, what we're expecting of a contractor kind of across the board. And a developer rather than, they were updated at different times in the past and, somebody's looking for an old requirement for how to flush a new water line that doesn't exist anymore based on what we currently have. And so just giving them a reference that's just, hey, go use AWWA requirements for cleaning that line. And as those change, that reference still stays the same. It's nothing restrictive that the city's doing, it's just, the standard.
Okay.
So are all of these before us in the staff report existing policies, or are some of these newly in front of us, in front of the city staff?
This is
Cause it is kind of mixed, so I don't know if that was intentional.
No, it's a little out of order.
Yeah.
So, and I did notice that there were still some comment sections in one of the spec sections. So we'll clean that up. Are there many more slides?
Next one might be for the comment.
Yeah. Okay, so, which is perfect, because that leads right into it. So our goal here is, just like you said, Mr. Vice Mayor, is we don't want contractors to come out and be like, oh, this is, well over and above what we do anywhere else. So our plan was to post these for public comment. And I personally was going to send them to developers that have recently been working in town. The Vizinonis and the Jeff Spences and anybody that we have a tentative map for and has an engineer, I'd like to send them to them personally, but also just have them available for public to review and comment. And if there is anything out of alignment, that's where we want to get those comments back.
Yeah, I mean, it's, they're all mad at us and they're all, they don't know what's going on and there isn't stuff in writing. So at least we can do that, make it so they can look at it before they start spending money out.
Yeah. And then the goal, when this is all polished and we've gotten those comments and made those revisions is, we'll post it on the website, make it nice and easy for them to get through. Ideally, they could click on each one of the sections and open up and know that they're looking at water details, water specifications. So,
yeah, so that's gonna be my next question, not to get into like the micro details, but is this gonna be just one like 300-page document? Is it gonna be separate policies?
I've seen it both ways, depending on what city or county or website you go to. I personally like it where there's a section of all specs and then within that they can click on each section and go to just look at the sewer.
Or streets or drainage.
Yeah, so that list we gave you at the beginning there, so you'd have your general, your water, your sewer, your drainage, streets and trenching. So those would be the sections that we would highlight and then and so, but then you'd have a section of just the specifications and then you could have one where you just open up the details. So like for me personally, I usually look at the detail first, right? I want to see what the picture looks like. And then if I need more, I'll go dig into the spec. And so we want to be I would like to present it that way on the website so that that's what other engineers and developers can look at.
And so then just to where we got at this point now, you said that you have worked with our public works director. So if I know it's under the streets policy where you have the comments on the side.
Yeah.
So who's commenting?
Those were some internal comments that.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember Allie Holiday, but her initials were AH. So those were some of her comments that we just forgot to turn off before we hit the print button. So sorry about that.
Well, and then to put our, not to put our public works director on the spot, but have you had a chance to look at this, or do you plan to take a peek and provide your feedback to our engineer?
Yeah, I actually looked with some of it and actually with Ally. She worked with Ross and I for quite a while, going back and forth, actually almost going page by page. Biggest thing is just trying to get it up to today's standards. And that way it's across the board, everybody. This is how you, like he says, disinfect the water line. This is how you do everything. But yeah, so I will certainly look at it more just with them probably to check for maybe errors or things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and as our most senior city staff here, I think we would very much appreciate you taking a look and providing your feedback.
Yep.
I know it's gonna be time consuming, but yeah, we'd appreciate that. Yeah.
No problem.
All right.
But if there's no more questions, there's no action needed. We're just, we're gonna polish this up and put them in order and then upload them to the city website and put out a notice for public comment that they're.
And can we get a copy to the council of the final draft that this is not
yes.
gonna be available?
Yeah, and I will probably just, well, maybe I'll put it in two with the details and the specs, but that way it's in order. You can just, it'll just be one document of specs and one document of all the details, and that way you don't have to go through each one. So, we'll do that. We'll get that out here by the end of the week.
Sorry, one last comment. So are we gonna also talk about housing standards, or that's not included in this? That's separate.
This is primarily just the design and construction standards for improvements, infrastructure improvements. The general section has a little bit about what's required for a subdivision improvement plan, but not the actual housing standard. It's for your planning department. Yeah, that said, a lot of times the planning department will, piggyback off of an update like this and have their own kind of plan that they have. I have seen that in some cities, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Discussion, council? Discussion, the public?
Yes, I got a question. The wife,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Gridley. I heard something, at least I think I heard something. I didn't make. Shouldn't speak out again because you said something. Can you speak over? We can't hear you. You can't hear me?
No, it's because the podium is blocking you.
It's at podium. And talk to the council too, please.
Okay. That's good. And what the question is basically you're gonna make the roads thicker because it seemed I heard that you're gonna grind the city streets.
No. So the way that they were designed previously with the standards, there wasn't enough when they do get to a point that you can grind and overlay. When you only have 2 inches of asphalt, you have to grind out 2 inches. Now you're into the aggregate base, and so it doesn't work that way. So some of our more thorough, more traveled streets are a thicker asphalt. That's why they're able to do a grind and overlay. But all of our residentials are just 2 inches of asphalt over aggregate base, which is why you see them looking like gravel roads after 20 years.
So you're not gonna try to grind them?
No. We're just gonna require new ones to be built with a thicker layer of asphalt.
All right, thank you. No action needed on this. Now, we're gonna go to council committee reports.
Well, I didn't attend them last month, basically because I attended the academy, council members academy. 3 days. So it was Wednesday, which is the beginning of the meeting, and Thursday, which was detailed. So I was in second.
I had kind of an interesting week that I wanted to report this a little bit on. I spent 2 days in Sacramento at the Sawyer Hotel with, I believe it's called NCPA 101, and what it amounted to is we met in the morning and then divided up in groups and went to each one of the different sections of NCPA, the met with their managers on the geothermal, the hydro, electric. I can't remember all of them now, but it was an all-day schooling, and it was good. Really enjoyed it. We're lucky, very lucky that we have NCPA on our quarter. A lot of assets there, a lot of really effective people. Very. And then that evening, it was kind of special, Wilton's father is retiring, and he had a retirement dinner for him, and that was nice. Everybody got up, well, everybody had different gifts for him. One was fellow from Oregon, gave him a blanket. Pemberton blanket, man, I like that was nice. So that was enjoyable. And then that's 2 days later, I believe it was, I got the opportunity to go to Councilman Lamont's funeral. And I've never been to a funeral like that in my life. It was unreal. I'd never seen so many law enforcement in one spot. They had 4 snipers that I could count. They had 4 or 5 drones circling, 2 SWAT teams. We had 4 of our policemen there, but that made the difference right there. And it all went well. It was Speaker of the House Johnson, he spoke. Gallagher, Jim Gallagher, he spoke. The governor was there. He was never brought up. He was never acknowledged he was there, but he was there. And it was over 4,000 people. They filled up the whole room, the whole building. That silver people got to go into, and then everybody else had to stand outside. It was something. So, and then I heard just today that he was buried over here in Gridley. And as he was burying, a U-2 went over and got over his grave and went vertical straight up.
What that was about.
That's what that big noise was.
Oh, wow. I watched that. Yeah.
I've seen that before, and
it was loud.
Makes
Makes
it-
buildings and
Yeah.
everything, yeah.
It's quite nice.
I watched it. I've actually videoed it.
So anyway, that was my week.
Wow. Wow. I had nothing.
Report.
City manager.
Yes, I attended a few meetings. I think we've highlighted some of them with California Consulting to discuss several grants, one of them being the card, the CDBG also with housing tools. I attended the city manager's quarterly meeting. And then also a meeting with potential a site for subdivision legacy. And I think myself and Chris attended that and seemed to be moving quite along quite well. Gridley Unified School District, we met with them as we normally do. We have a monthly meeting that we meet with them and we talk about any areas or concerns that we have. And just again, establishing those relationships with our school district is important as there's any concerns that come our way that we relay that information and there vice versa. And then also a lot of mid-year reviews with all the department heads. I attended that. And then that's pretty much it. That's all my report.
Thank you. Department head updates.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So January 19th, engine 74, which is the county funded fire engine here in the city of Gridley. They are now staffed with 3 people. So they're traditionally staffed, meaning they have a captain, engineer, and a firefighter on duty every day. And that is due to Measure H funding. This allowed us, that increased staffing allowed us to bring 3 of our personnel back. They came back as captains. So they have a considerable amount of time working here in the city of Gridley and will now obviously benefit the city by being here with their local knowledge. Truck 74, the new ladder truck, is in the final weeks of construction. And we are flying some personnel out on February 23rd. They're going to do the final inspection, and we expect that sometime mid-March or so, the ladder truck will probably be on its way out here. Our personnel at the station here have been engaged in annual skills testing where they are proving competency and showing that they can perform fireground skills efficiently and effectively. And then ladder testing has been going on also, which ensures the safety of our ladders. And then let's see. Truck 74 was also on standby for the Malfa service. It was not utilized, but it was all washed up, ready to go in case something happened with the other ladder truck that was there. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. All right, thank you, Kevin.
Welcome, Chief. Welcome to the.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just a real quick update so we can all go home and enjoy dinner. Softball field of Vera Park. We got the roof on the first base side dugout all stripped off. Most of it put back today. Should be all done by the end of this week. The air conditioner at the snack bar should be, I got notice that he was wanting to start by the end of the week. So this week, next week, all that should be done as well. Kind of throughout town, we're still trying to police, sorry, bad word, potholes. So I was trying to, just, it's an ongoing process there. Just monitoring, there you go. Yeah. And then trying to prune around some of the street signs, stop signs, and we're running across some really faded stop signs. We're trying to get those replaced. So that's about it.
Make one comment. Vera Park, can you get some bigger no dogs allowed signs up?
We can work on that.
I see a lot of.
Yeah. It seems like we got them everywhere, but.
I mean, it's real cute. You can run your dog out there, but then that dog leaves a mess and somebody else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yep. Yeah, we can work on bigger
We
signs.
talked a little bit about yeah, you might want to.
Okay, that was another thing we had talked about in our managers meeting.
Yeah.
Those speed bumps that are there. There's some companies out that have, I'll call them plastic ones that can be mounted down. They're in a lot of places. Wanting to possibly replace those, get rid of those vertical. So, and the other thing with it, when we do install these, instead of going back with asphalt ones, when we do finally get to repave that area, those can be reused. So they're not gonna be going in a dump truck and off to make AB out of them. So.
I have a suggestion, and I think we might be divided on this, but what about putting a sign up, while there's no dogs allowed at the park, please clean up your mess and provide like doggy bags?
So we
I mean, at least
have those.
it's gonna save our staff a trip from having to clean that up if we provide maybe a bag, the owners can do it themselves.
It just shows you can have.
Just a thought.
We always clean up with this.
Or maybe just, revamp the sign and say no dogs, but please clean up after yourself. And then the second thing, speaking of signage, I know the stop sign in front of the Catholic Church on Hazel Street and Oregon was knocked off. I'm not sure if we've had the.
That should have been replaced.
Okay, I haven't driven in a while, but I wanted to just raise that.
Yeah, if not, we did put a new breakaway in there and the new sign will be mounted if it's not, but I thought we got it last week.
Oh, I haven't
I
passed
could
by
double
it,
check.
but I just wanted to ask, thank you.
And I think also looking at stop signs as well, the condition of existing stop signs.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned, that we are replacing the faded ones. Yeah.
Throughout town.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not gonna get them all right away.
Yeah.
As we see them, we'll. Should I make it? Thank you.
Nothing new to report for the police department.
Nothing new to report here at electric department.
Yes, anybody?
You got all my reports.
I know it is.
Mayor, not a whole lot to update since the 20th. Fortunately, Mayor, you weren't here for that, but things continue to move forward as you hear about meeting with Legacy and trying to keep pushing development forward. Those little things are happening in the background, but no major milestones to write about today.
Got everybody, we will adjourn.
Session.
Closed session.
Closed session.
Move to closed session, Mr. Mayor.
Turn to closed section. So,